us Pakistanis to vindicate them on a very, very personal level, as has been very eminent from the recent spate of tweets and messages and WhatsApp group messages that have come out following Pakistan's defeat against India and Pakistan's defeat against Australia. Certainly, there are issues with the Pakistani cricket team, but we need to address them with a certain decorum. This is what I will try to talk about at the end of the show as well. But let's begin with the Pakistan-India relationship and also talk about our two guests that are here to talk about the Pakistan-India spectrum of bilateral relationship. On my very right is Dr. Ghulam Mujaddid. You are a senior analyst. Dr. Saab, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And secondly is our very regular guest and a good friend of ours, Qamar Cheema Saab. You're a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Qamar Saab, to have joined us as well. Ghulam Mujaddid Saab, you must have read what came out in the Pakistani press as well, that there is a reciprocation. That is, of course, true, but then they say that India is ready for talks with Pakistan. That has been downplayed by the Indian side. In your point of view, did that really happen? That request, that was reciprocated for talks between India and Pakistan from the Indian side, and then it was downplayed due to some political reasons or whatever. And B, despite that, they talk about India seeking normal and cooperative relations with all its neighbors, including Pakistan. So they're talking in the same vein as Pakistan has been doing. But on the other hand, they do not reciprocate Pakistan's sentiments. Why is that?
Okay, the background of the recent reports in the Pakistani press that Prime Minister Modi or India is ready for talk to Pakistan has a background. Actually, I think 1 or 2 days back, the Indian Prime Minister and the Indian Foreign Minister wrote back to their counterparts in Pakistan in connection with the letters of felicitation that these two offices in Pakistan had written to their Indian counterpart. At the face of it, this is a normal diplomatic courtesy that has been exchanged, that our Prime Minister congratulated the Indian Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister congratulated the Indian Foreign Minister on his appointment as Foreign Minister, and so after a few days they reciprocated. And they used diplomatic language that is often used between the two sovereign countries. And of course, the Prime Minister Modi thanked Prime Minister Imran Khan and also expressed that India wishes to have normal relations and good relations with all its neighbors, including Pakistan. And the same kind of feelings were reciprocated by Jaishankar, that is the Indian Foreign Minister, to the letter of our Foreign Minister. Now, as far as the consent for the talk, explicit consent for the talk from the Indian side is concerned, that was not there. It was a normal reciprocation of the good feelings that were extended to Indian on their high mark occasion of election or reselection.
So did the Pakistani press look too much into the
I think
response?
it was a hasty conclusion drawn out by the press, although our press is quite familiar with the diplomatic jargon and the language, but I think I could only say that it was a very hasty conclusion. Should not. I mean, there are people of matter there in the press, and only the thing we should be cautious rather than be a little loose on whatever we conclude about certain interaction between the state level.
All right, Qamar Cheema Saab, what do you have to say about that? The downplaying or not from the Indian side as far as the talks are concerned, is the Pakistani media to be blamed to some extent for having looked too much into the response from the Indian side? What do you make of it? What do you make also of the response that has come from the Indian External Affairs Ministry spokesperson?
Well, I think the response that has come from the Indian External Affairs Ministry, this is a regular response. This is not something new to be pondered upon. I think India is not having this plan to talk to Pakistan right now. For example, if you just look at that the day Prime Minister Modi took oath, he didn't invite any of the regional leader. He invited the BIMSTEC, the new leaders of the region. They're basically redrawing the borders of the region. For example, they are having all the members in the BIMSTEC, including Myanmar and Thailand. So they're excluding Pakistan, Afghanistan and Maldives, and they're making their own region, and they're connecting it to the Asia Pacific because they believe that much of the economic activity is going to be there. So I think as far as Pakistan is concerned, we must not be having high hopes that there will be talks between India and Pakistan. You might have seen how Prime Minister Modi went to Bishkek. They got the asked for the approval, permission. When we gave the permission, they even didn't use that permission, and they took a long flight to reach to the Bishkek. I think they are not in a mood. Why? Because they have just won these elections on the basis of national security,
And the Pakistan card.
anti-Pakistan vote. So at the moment, if we expect there's not going to happen something as far as the talks are concerned, and the media is not moved, the society is in not a mood. The government cannot take 180-degree U-turn that, look, we are talking with Pakistan now. This is not going to happen. And above all, their consistent policy has been to isolate Pakistan diplomatically, politically, and economically, and that is why they are trying to make SAARC dysfunctional. If I would say, SAARC is completely dysfunctional. They are not working on that. And in our talks which we have with the diplomats here in Islamabad, we are talking that what will be the way forward now. And the Indians are saying that you have to tell that what will be the way forward, because they are linking everything what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir with the Pakistan's policy. And so I think right now there is no mood of talk, and I think Pakistan must believe that India is not the end of the world. We need to look at the other options as well. There are other multilateral forums where we are part of that. For example, SCO is another part of forum where we have to be part of that. Rather looking just to India and thinking that talks are very necessary, this is not sufficient. We should plan what we need to talk, what we need to do, but at the same time we should open new avenues for engagements at the other multilateral forums.
All right, Dr. Ghulam Mujahid Sahab, Pakistan and India were together at the SCO summit in Kyrgyzstan very recently. Do you feel that forums such as the SCO can, and I put it quote unquote, bring Pakistan and India towards an aura or towards a mood for talks on maybe economy, on how they can move forward as far as trade is concerned, maybe not on politics, because that is something that is a very thorny issue, especially for India?
Well, I am a strong believer in the international connectedness and alliances and groupings and regionalization. SCO is a very, very promising organization, looks after the security of the state and some intended economic issues as well as a byproduct. And the very purpose of such an organization in the shape of the summit meeting, and this was the 19th of the series of the SCO summit meeting that took place, where all the members, heads of the state came. Now, they would interact. I mean, even the interaction between our Prime Minister and Prime Minister Modi, although it was very short and all that, but nevertheless, what did it accrue? It accrued that there were pleasantries that were exchanged. How are you? Things of that sort. I mean, so these are the forums which provide opportunities. I mean, we could have gone, or both countries have used this opportunity to move a little forward, to move a lot forward. I mean, that. Now, what is the then overriding factor? These are very important forums, SCO, SAARC. But what is the overriding factor? According to my understanding, the overriding factors are the internal domestic factors in both countries. As Shima Sahab just pointed out, that the internal factors, whatever they are, they're very important. And if we want to be, friends, and if we want to accommodate one another, then both of us, Pakistan as well as India, would have to look at those internal factors that are kind of restraining both countries to go forward in a particular direction. And remember, whether it is India and Pakistan or it is United States of America or Canada, the geographic neighbors, they have to live in peace. It is not who is big or who is small. The neighborhood demands, I mean, your neighbors, and there are many challenges. Who says that, once you are neighbor, then, our interests become, common, and it is not always that we think on all the issues in the same way. There is a lot of problem between, or these challenges between India and China, but after all, they are pulling along. Similarly, in case of Pakistan and India, we need to look at our internal factors, probably both the countries, and then sort out a way forward.
All right. Sorting out a way forward, when Khalid Saab, the Indian media points out, and I quote unquote, India has not been engaging with Pakistan since an attack which they claim. on the Air Force base at Pathankot in January 2016 by what they claim is a terror group that is based in Pakistan, maintaining that talks and terror cannot go together. On the other hand, we see what happened also very recently this year. We also see what happened as a result of the Pulwama incident. We see how Pakistan has always exercised restraint. We have seen that when this current government came into power, one of the first messages that our Prime Minister said, he talked about peace between the two nations. He said he talked about India specifically and said, if you put a step forward, we'll go 2 steps ahead as far as building a relationship between the two countries is concerned. Understood that BJP has a Hindu nationalist agenda that is against the Pakistani or Islamic or Muslim mindset or the whole subcontinent mindset. They do not understand why Pakistan was created in the first place. But now that Pakistan has been created, 70 years have passed, more than 70 years have passed, why don't they kind of come to an understanding of some sorts when even previous foes like Germany and France could come to an understanding after the Second World War, given the point that they were also on a lot of differences before that?
Well, I think, but the real challenge, what I feel, is that there is a serious disconnect. There is a complete deadlock between both the countries. For example, in a recent, I think 2 days ago, a few army officers have been killed in Indian occupied Kashmir, and Pakistan gave the intelligence to India that something like that is going to happen. And we believe that since certain global non-state actors, the international terrorist organizations have also come in the region. They are in Pakistan, they are in India, they are in Afghanistan. So we are sharing information with you that something might happen. Now the Indians believe that why you are sharing information, you must do something to stop this. The point is that when we share intelligence sharing with India, the Indians don't trust us. But when India shares intelligence sharing with Sri Lanka for the April attacks, that is fine. The problem is that if we are building the trust between, intelligence sharing is very important, especially between India and Pakistan. And since we believe that Islamic State or Al-Qaeda, they are having their roots in the region, and they are moving into Indian occupied Kashmir so that they can discredit the indigenous struggle going on in Indian occupied Kashmir. And if Pakistan is providing its information, because we have fought with the Islamic State, we have fought with Al-Qaeda, we have fought with the Pakistani Taliban, so we know much of their operators and handlers and supporters and abettors. So if we get such kind of information and we share with India, they must trust this. And if rather trusting this, they blame us again, I think things can't move forward. We need such kind of a trust. The problem here, what Omer, I feel, is that if Pakistan is here to talk, India is there to talk. The problem is that both countries, since they have this lack of confidence, how the talks will sustain, how the talks will keep moving. Something will happen in Indian occupied Kashmir. We keep on telling Indians that the problem is that you are having 700,000 soldiers in Indian occupied Kashmir. If something happens there, we are not responsible. You need to redraw your social contract. You need to, I think this is the failure of Indian democratic institutions, that they could not embrace their own people, to whom they are subjugating, to whom they are killing, where they are having the human rights violations. So what matters at the moment is that we need someone that can help us to keep talks moving. If there is no third party, to which India does not believe that there should be in the region. So if there is no third party, how we have to move forward? And when we share information, we try to build the confidence, they don't reciprocate in the same language. So I think here there is a problem, and if this deadlock continues, no one else can help us to move forward. And I think India, which is on this way forward, that Dr. Saab were absolutely right, that we need to build the best of the ties with the neighbors, and I think that is the only way forward since we are living here. But I think since how can we remove, or how can we end or minimize this trust deficit? Something must happen on this, and I think these positive gestures are going since last 1 year, since Prime Minister Imran Khan is in office.
All right, Dr. Saab, how can we build on this mistrust from the Indian side? They do not, whatever happens on their side, they always are the first to blame the Pakistani side. And secondly, of course, we understand through all the different reactions that come from their political arena, or especially from their media. Open up their media and you see only virulent comments against Pakistan on all of their channels, and Qamar Shima Sahib has been to many of them representing Pakistan's side. So what do you feel needs to be done to build on that trust, to make India understand that it is only together in an ambience when both countries can move together that the region can prosper as well?
I think the basic, the fundamental, the vital prerequisites between the two countries remains whatever Chima Sahib has pointed out, or whatever anybody, that trust, building of the trust. Trust that Pakistan is fundamentally interested in the well-being of Pakistan, and the trust that India is fundamentally interested in well-being of India. If both countries are for their respective well-being, then all those factors that stymie or that stop or that hinder reaching of that state of well-being and dignity for people of both countries, they would be surmounted one by one. You know, once India tells us certain things that, well, we do it like this, or we tell them certain, there is always a background. Okay, I mean, so if we really want to move forward, listen to them. What are they saying? What are their grievances, for example? And then once we have listened to them, then tell them, okay, what are yours? And talk to them. So talking of whatever way, the front, you know, the visible diplomacy, the back channel diplomacy, you know, the visible,
but
invisible.
Dr. Saab, this diplomacy that you talk about, whether it be back channel or in the front, that has happened in the past as well, but it has never reaped long-term results. Why? This is what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, I mean, the question should be, if we want to, for example, in the typical parlance, if we want to blame somebody, I mean, they say that don't blame your enemies that much, because after all, you made them. So, I mean, if we want to put aspersion onto India, we should be a little, you know, introspectively ready to look at ourselves. Maybe, I mean, we could have done certain things in a better way. Not that we did things in a bad way, no, we could have done things, we have made choices in a better way. And same is true for Indians. So, I mean, whatever I'm hinting at is that, you know, our country is a dignified country, and we should treat others also at the same level. You know, it is not that Indians are not interested in their uplift and dignity. They are, I believe so, and so are we. So we must, you know, move forward, and doesn't matter if the way is difficult. There is a lot of complications. It's not an easy way. That's why we have reached.
But there is definitely a way forward. That is what you are saying.
Yeah,
but
there is a way.
what are the lacunas, Qamar Saab, for example, who Dr. Saab points out that there might be issues that there exist on our side as well. Are there? Do you agree with Dr. Saab? If you do, what do you feel they are? And we know what happens from the Indian side. We see the blame game instantly coming from their side without any rhyme or reason or without any proof whatsoever. This is what the Pakistani side has always said. Our Prime Minister has also always said, whenever there is a proof, let us know of that proof. But that proof is never given. Qamar Saab, so what are the lacunas that you feel are from the Pakistani side?
Well, I think historically, not contemporary, in contemporary times, historically there has been a mistrust between the elected and unelected officers, that how we have to move forward in India. The way elected officers wanted to move, the unelected officers didn't have that idea, or they didn't have that tendency that we need to go this way. So I think historically this has been a problem. For example, the way Nawaz Sharif was moving towards India, that is good. I think they should have gone. The way Zardari Saab was going for the Shrine diplomacy, for the cricket diplomacy, Gilani Saab was going. So these were excellent moves by the Pakistan People's Party government.
Diplomacy,
The
as well, this
Kartarpur,
corridor
the
that
religious
present government is,
diplomacy, the religious diplomacy again by Imran Khan. This is all fabulous. All what matters is that right now there is a message in India, and the India understands that the elected and unelected offices in Pakistan are working together. They share the same agenda for the region. All what India can do is that there is a best time for India to talk to Pakistan if they really want to talk. But let me tell you, what is happening at the moment? The Indians are telling that we cannot talk with you because we don't have a confidence on you. The same is with us. We say that we can't talk because we don't have confidence, because if we will talk, what happened with the composite dialogue that started in 2004 and ended in 2007? And Umar Saab, since 2007, this is 2019, there has been not a single dialogue. There is no, things are not moving forward. Sushma Swaraj came last time and we converted it to from the composite dialogue to the comprehensive dialogue, but things are not moving. And above all, what is happening? India has gone too far to come back. For instance, the entire freedom struggle in Indian occupied Kashmir, which is indigenous, not being supported by Pakistan in any way, has been termed as terrorism. Now, the definition of terrorism, Barsab, is changed for the region. If the freedom struggle of the indigenous movement, the heavily militarized zone in the world, if it is being called as terrorism,
More
or
than
the terrorists,
700,000 troops, Indian
so,
troops.
so how I think India has intellectually taken things on their own hand, and we are here in Pakistan, we even couldn't undo or we couldn't even dispute that. So the world is looking towards Indian occupied Kashmir and all that moment, and they're calling it as a terrorism. So I think this is what is important, and above all, India is an escalator. This is an aggressor. They are violator of international law. That happened in Pulwama, that happened in Balakot, Umar Saab. The world didn't say that that was the violation of international law when the strikes happened in Pakistan. There is some serious problem there. And I think that serious problem needs to be addressed. Our perspective and our view is not being credited. We are not being supported. I think where India's perspective is being accepted, our perspective is being discredited.
All right.
I think this is
Dr. Saab, is this because of some geostrategic development in the region? Is this because of the alignment more of the United States and some other Western powers towards India than towards Pakistan, that Pakistan's perspective, as per Qamar Chima Saab, is not being understood or put forward with as much dignity and confidence as is the Indian perspective?
But sir, in the international scenarios, things are in a constant state of flux. But one thing is very certain, like the rise of China as one of the superpowers, the rise of India because it has a landmarks, population, resources and all that, that gives it a stature in the international politics. Whether we like it or not, those figures are there, Indian geography is there and all this. We have a certain amount of clout of our own, strength of our own. We also have elements of national power and all that. There could be a situation because of the changes in the international structure that India's prominence not only comes to the fore, but also it is enhanced by its so-called international connectedness and all that. And that puts, that makes us shine in a little fader light. But that doesn't mean that Pakistan's national potential has gone somewhere else. No, the Pakistan's national potentials very much reside within Pakistan. But I would agree with you that there is a need, and these are normal, scenarios for any living nation. But what we need to do is we need to do internal balancing within our home to put the things correct within ourselves, because only it is a stabilized and a prospect future, a society which is seem to stand on its own feet, that attracts respect of the outside world. This
and that
is the
changes their
fundamental
perspective. This is your point of view.
That is natural to change their perspective.
All right. But on one side, we hear that the international side, Qamar Chima Sahib, as you've pointed out, does not take Pakistan's perspective into as much of seriousness as it does the Indian perspective. On the other side, the world has seen at large the jingoistic attitude of the Indian authorities, the Indian government. What happens in Indian occupied Kashmir till 31st of May 2019, from January 1989, 95,383 killings, and I repeat the term. Amount of people arrested, killed, women raped, pellet gun injuries that have begun, and so on, and the list goes on. And the recent spate of racial tensions and racial killings and whatnot, aggression in all over India. I mean, we move over from Indian occupied Kashmir towards all of India, where Muslims are targeted, where Christians are targeted. Why is this happening, and why is there no international outcry on that?
I think we have been answering this question, and
But I want to again ask this question.
Yeah, we have been answering this question since long. I think we have seen that there have been much of the human rights violations globally, especially by our own Muslim-friendly states. And yet the world is engaging with them, forgetting what is happening in Palestine, forgetting what the freedom movements or the democratic movements, if the social movements, the Middle East have turned out to be, or how the Arab Spring has met its fate, even with the Morsi's death. I think same is what is happening in India. They believe that India is a major global financial destination. So these are the corporate interests of the global community which are making India.
So they put aside whatever violence is happening in the whole of the country, and they say, oh, let's do business with them.
Umar Saab, this is a reality. For example, if the Human Rights Watch is there, Amnesty International is there, United Nations is there, every major forum globally is condemning India for its human rights violations, but yet India's political clout
falls
is
on deaf ears.
Yet India's political cloud and diplomatic clout is improving. So it means there is something very serious. We need to talk that what is happening. For example, if what Prime Minister Trump is saying about the Muslim states, the President Trump is saying about the Muslim states, I need money. I'm not concerned what is happening about the human rights. That is not my problem. If Khashoggi got killed, no problem. We need money. We need business. So I think things are changing very sharply. So India is being viewed from particular lens. So what we can do is that is why our perspective is not being understood very clearly. And I think, but we don't have any other choice, but we can continuously knock on the global multilateral forums. We can continually tell them what is happening. I think this makes a difference. This will make a difference, and it is making a difference bit by bit. And let me tell you, the more India's regional clout is growing, the more accountability they will have to face. You might have seen the global press or in the international press is coming up with certain stories about India, which has put a lot of question mark on their credibility. For example, after Balakot, when the planes were down, the New York Times wrote against the defense capability of India because they knew
the
Pulwama, and the Balakot, obviously. So I think all what matters at the moment is that we need to keep pressing international community and international press, and we need to keep telling them what is happening there. So at the end of the day, it will make some difference, not a complete difference, but some difference it will make, I think.
All right, Dr. Saab, do you feel that the international community, world community, we have tried in the past, keep on trying on the Kashmir issue, we keep on trying on highlighting this Kashmir issue internationally. In the United Nations, we've got Dr. Mali Halodi, who is splendid as far as highlighting what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir is concerned. We've got all the Kashmiri leaders. We have the parliamentary delegation that has been nominated by Speaker Asad Kaisar, also that is being led by the Kashmir Committee Chairman Sayyid Fakhr Imam to highlight Indian atrocities in Kashmir. There are different fora for that are highlighting whatever is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir nationally and internationally. Will these efforts from the Pakistani side, however intense and aggressive and continuous they might be, do you feel they will have an impact sooner or later?
Well, it's a continuous effort. We will have to continue to make this effort at just later. I mean, we have no choice but to do that. Pakistan has made tremendous sterling efforts to highlight the problem of Kashmir to the world, not in the recent contemporary times, but since very beginning. Kashmir Committee and other arrangements have been there and all that. But we know where have we reached. I just want to add one thing, that the bringing of the atrocities committed by Indian forces in Kashmir, I think, in my opinion, it is done more by the international organizations. by the United Nations.
Of course, it has been the 49-page report that came
by
out.
this-
We've got Amnesty International that continuously takes out reports on that.
And recently also the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations had asked India. They sent a report, and the Indian authorities have blatantly refused that. Well, they do not want to negotiate anymore on the reports sent by the United Nations organizations on human rights. So the world, the international community per se, is very determined, determinedly looking at the situation in Kashmir. I think their voice and all that is very powerful. And in the same vein, if our Kashmir Committee and our efforts, diplomatic, political, social, and cultural effort around the globe, they would highlight the plight of the Kashmiris, and they will inch forward towards ultimately the negotiations on the issue and perhaps the
So
settlement.
you are optimistic on that?
I am optimistic. I mean, we must make an endeavor. There is no other way that we can't just sit idle. We just have to make endeavors.
All right, Qamar Saab, I'll revert to the congratulatory messages by Prime Minister Imran Khan and Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, and the retaliatory messages that came. Retaliatory, I mean the reciprocal messages that came from the Indian side, and what has been said by the Indian External Affairs Ministry spokesperson, who says that both messages from the Indian side highlight that India seeks normal and cooperative relations with all its neighbors, including Pakistan. Now, I want to highlight this very statement because on the one hand, this is what they say officially. Why don't they abide by it?
Well, I think there's a lot of things we see officially, but we don't work on that. I think as far as India is concerned, I'm very concerned that India has appointed Mr. Jaishankar as foreign minister. He's a seasoned diplomat. But if you just look at the choices the Prime Minister Modi has made on interior and defense minister, you'll see that the Rajnath Singh and Mr. Amit Shah, they are both hawks, they are both hardliners. Along with Mr. Modi, they have to take the real national security decisions. And I don't see any kind of a change. The Amit Shah, who is the interior minister, is the person who says that if we will come in power, we will throw the Muslims outside the country.
We remember that
Yeah,
statement.
and what the Rajnath Singh has been saying, he came here for the SAARC conference and how he went. So the mood and the leadership and the core committee of the BJP, they're really the hawks. And what is happening in the Foreign Office, I think this is just a statement. They are giving it because actually everybody monitors that. They can't be hawkish all the time. They can't be aggressor all the time. They can't be jingoistic all the time. They have to show something to the international audience
Exactly.
that this is what. But let me tell you, including Pakistan, but with the BIMSTEC initiative, they are going to change the neighbors. They don't believe Pakistan, Afghanistan, or SAARC or Maldives.
But that's very
is
strange. That's very strange because on one hand they do involve Afghanistan directly or indirectly when it comes to entering Pakistan and doing the incidents that have been happening in the past. Afghanistan has been used directly and indirectly, and on the other hand they use BIMSTEC. I mean, this is a very strange kind of a diplomatic setup that is happening.
Umar Saab, I think Afghanistan's importance increased for India because of Pakistan. Otherwise, Afghanistan's importance increased because of Pakistan. Afghanistan does not serve anything specially or particularly to India for moving towards West Asia or moving towards this part of the world. But I think all they believe is that whatever they have to do for Afghanistan, that is, they're doing it for Pakistan because they really need Afghanistan, because they really want to completely, shun this concept that Pakistan's idea of strategic depth, which we have completely shunned out.
To be very frank, Qamar Saab, even the idea of Pakistan's independence hasn't been digested by a lot of the leaders, the so-called leaders that are currently there in India. They have
Obviously,
not
they
yet
have
understood more than
not
70 years
accepted.
that Pakistan is a separate nation, a state. I mean, that they need to be aware about, but they don't understand it all.
I think there is some problem in India, and that is that they still consider Pakistan as an ideological state, and they're not moving away from this. Although if you just look at, they got the constitution, they got the secular constitution, but they are running India on the Hindu values. They are not running India on the secular values. They are running
And they claim
India
to be the world's largest
democracy, and they are by default. So I think what matters at the moment is that we are looking all these deep holes in in the Indian politics, and we need to keep pinpointing all those. The
All right,
only
all right.
audience, our audience is global audience. Our audiences are not in India, because that is the only way we can project our case.
All right. The only audience, ladies and gentlemen, is our global audience. The only audience that will understand Pakistan's perspective is that exists outside of this region, and also our very friendly neighbors that are China and now Russia and the Central Asian countries that understand Pakistan's perspective, because that is what Pakistan wants. Pakistan wants peace in the region. Pakistan wants all countries of the region to work together for harmony in the region. Dr. Ghulam Mujahid Saab, Qamar Cheema Saab, thank you so very much for your interesting input on this continuous debate on Pakistan-India relationship and the way that India treats Pakistan. I hope, I can only be optimistic that all of that changes with time, whether it be due to their own reasoning, their own changing of reasoning, or international pressure. We will see what time has in store for that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Which brings me to the last point of our show today, Pakistan's cricket. Now we know that Pakistan's cricket has issues. We know that our team does not perform well all the time when it should. We know that there are issues that need to be highlighted more and more with the Pakistani cricket team. But does that mean that we as a nation need to become personal with the Pakistani cricket players? Does that mean that we need to enter their personal lives and talk about their families and talk about the way they conduct themselves and what they did the evening before and how they raise their children and how their wives conducted themselves with their husbands? Is this really how we need to move forward in order for our cricket team or any other sporting team to be a stronger team? We understand there are lacunas like in any other sporting event around the world, but the way to move around it is to make changes in a progressive manner, is to have the departments that are related to the sports to work on that. That is up to the government, that is up to the Ministry of Sports, that is up to the Pakistan Cricket Board to work on that. That is not up to us. We can say, all right, Pakistan did not play well, Pakistan did not do as well, there were certain issues, but that does not mean that we become too personal or we start cracking jokes on the personal lives of players or what they do, if they yawn or if they do not. Fine, once in a blue moon is fine, but not all the time. You know, they are human beings at the end of the day, and our religion tells us, our society tells us, this is the norm of any society, of any religion, to respect each other, and we need to respect them, because after all, at the end of the day, they are our national team. Whether they're good or bad, they are that. We need to criticize them, but criticize them professionally and do not enter the personal aspects of the lives of our cricket players. That is all I'd like to say. And I hope that the relevant authorities also have seen what has happened. Of course, we lost against India, we lost against Australia. We did not play well against, even in our first match of the ICC World Cup. But the fact is that we have always come back. We remembered how we came back in our match against England and we won the match. Once we win a match, all is forgotten. But once we lose a match, then we come back to being personal with the players. This should not happen. Be more civic in your relationship with your sports players. Allah Hafiz and have a great week.